Black female executive snubbed by multimillionaires and cancels billion-dollar deal. Brianna Johnson held the golden pen between her trembling fingers when the consortium president let out a dry laugh and made a comment that cut through the air like a blade. It was about her natural hair, about how she should have dressed better for such an important meeting. The other four men laughed along, and in that moment, she felt her blood run cold. There it was, the salvation of Johnson Construction, the company her father had founded 30 years ago in Newark, which now employed 300 local families. The contract that would save everything from bankruptcy lay before her. But those men's words echoed like a painful reminder of a lifetime of disrespect. "How about we take a photo of you serving coffee for the promotional material?" suggested Richard Thompson, the group secretary, adjusting his glasses with a sly smile. "It'd look more natural, don't you think?" Brianna took a deep breath, trying to control the anger rising in her chest. She had gotten there after 2 years of struggle, 2 years trying to keep alive the company that was her father's pride, 2 years watching longtime employees cry in her office, worried about their families' futures. And now here she was, in the most luxurious meeting room in New York City, being treated like a maid. "Gentlemen, I believe we're here to discuss business," she said, forcing her voice to stay steady. Of course," replied William Anderson, the consortium president, a silver-haired man who controlled 80% of Greater New York's real estate market. "But relax, sweetheart. We're just breaking the ice." Sweetheart. The word made her clench her fists under the table. Mrs. Barbara, her personal assistant of 15 years, sat quietly in the corner, taking notes. Brianna caught the worried look in the 62-year-old woman's eyes. She had worked with her father since the company's earliest days. Barbara knew this moment was crucial, that without this contract, there'd be no way to pay next month's salaries. "Let's get straight to the point then," said Michael Wilson, the consortium's lawyer, sliding a thick folder toward Brianna. "The contract is here. As we discussed, you'll have a minority stake in the project." Brianna opened the folder and began reading. With each line, her expression darkened. This wasn't what they had discussed in preliminary meetings. Over the last few weeks, she had spent hours waiting in the lobby of this very building, watching white businessmen who arrived after her get seen first. But she had swallowed the humiliation, thinking of the greater good. "Minority stake?" she asked, looking up. "We talked about an equal partnership." "Oh yes," laughed Stephen Miller, the group's treasurer, a portly man who couldn't stop fiddling with his phone. "But you understand how it is, right? People like you, let's just say you don't have experience with sums this large. It's better this way, safer for everyone, people like you." The words cut deep. Brianna felt tears of anger burning her eyes, but fought to hold them back. She couldn't show weakness. Not now. Her phone buzzed discreetly. A message from Ashley, her 17-year-old daughter, waiting in the car downstairs. "Mom, are you okay? You've seemed tense since this morning." "You need to understand," William continued, leaning back in his leather chair, "that this investment is a favor we're doing. Your company is bankrupt. You should be grateful. Grateful for being humiliated, for having their dignity trampled." Mrs. Barbara coughed softly and stood. "Excuse me. I'll fetch water for everyone." Brianna knew it was an excuse. Barbara was just as shaken as she was by this situation. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing, when the assistant left, the atmosphere grew even tenser. Brianna kept reading the contract and noticed clauses that hadn't been mentioned before. Johnson Construction would have only a 15% stake in the venture, and she would be demoted to an advisory role. It was a trap. "You changed the terms," she said, pointing to the document. "We adjusted some technical details," Michael replied indifferently. "Nothing major. The important thing is your company will be saved." "And you think I don't understand contracts?" "Look," Stephen sighed, putting away his phone. "Let's be honest here. You're desperate. Your company has massive debts. Your employees are worried. There's not much room for negotiation." Brianna closed her eyes for a moment, remembering the day 3 years ago when her father, Robert Johnson, a black man who had started as a bricklayer and built an empire, called her to his sickbed. Brianna, my daughter, this company is our legacy. It's the story of every brick I laid with these hands, of every family that found work because of it. Promise me you'll take care of it." She had promised, and now she was there, selling that legacy for scraps. Mrs. Barbara returned with a tray of water, but she also brought something else. Discreetly, she slipped an envelope to Brianna under the tray. It was small, almost unnoticeable. "What's that?" William asked, noticing the movement. "Just some supplementary information about our company," Brianna replied quickly, tucking the envelope into her bag. "What information?" Richard pressed. "I thought we already had everything." "Updated revenue figures," Brianna lied. The truth was she had no idea what was in that envelope, but she trusted Barbara. The woman had been her father's right hand and knew every secret of the company. "Well, let's speed this up," William said, glancing at the gold watch on his wrist. "I have a lunch in 15 minutes. Sign it and let's go." "I need a few minutes to review everything." "Review?" Stephen laughed. "Why?" "It's take it or leave it. And trust me, after today, you won't find anyone else willing to invest in this sinking ship." Brianna stood abruptly. "I need to use the restroom." "Go ahead, sweetheart," William said dismissively, "but don't take too long, okay? Time is money." In the luxurious restroom on the 40th floor, Brianna opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a small flash drive and a note in Barbara's handwriting. Recordings of their other meetings. Listen to everything. Her heart racing, she plugged the flash drive into her phone and began listening. It was the same men in other meetings talking about different business owners. She heard horrors. Plans to fire long-time employees as soon as contracts were signed. Schemes to resell land at inflated prices. Racist and sexist remarks about other entrepreneurs. And then she heard something that made her tremble. Them talking specifically about Johnson Construction. "Once she signs, we'll fire all the old employees. That company's land is worth a fortune. We'll turn it into premium parking. And her? She'll stay on as a consultant for about 6 months until we find a reason to let her go too." Brianna leaned against the cold bathroom wall, feeling the world spin. They didn't want to save the company. They wanted to destroy it completely. When she returned to the room, the 5 men were talking among themselves, ignoring her presence. "Well, look who's back," Richard said. "Made up your mind to sign, or do you need more time to think?" "I'm reviewing a few things," she replied, sitting back down. "What issues?" "It's simple. Sign or your company goes bankrupt next month." At that moment, her phone rang. It was Elizabeth Carter, a retired 70-year-old businesswoman who had been her father's mentor. Brianna visited Elizabeth every week, seeking advice and emotional support. "Don't answer it," ordered Stephen. "We're in a meeting." "It's important," said Brianna. "Either hang up that phone or leave the room," threatened William. Brianna ended the call, but not before seeing Elizabeth's message. "Got what you asked for. Documents ready." "Documents? What documents?" She hadn't asked Elizabeth for anything. "All right, now that you've handled your personal matters, let's get to business," said Michael, pointing to the contract. "Sign here." Brianna picked up the gold pen, the same one her maternal grandmother, Grandma Ruth, had given her when she graduated with a business degree. "So you only sign things that help you grow, my dear," the old woman had said, but something still bothered her. How did Elizabeth know she needed documents? "Can I make one quick call?" she asked. "No!" shouted Richard, slamming his hand on the table. "You're testing our patience. Sign this damn thing or we walk out." Just then another phone rang. It was William's. "Hello? What do you mean? What document?" he said, visibly nervous. "Where did you get these?" The other men exchanged worried glances. "Who is it?" asked Stephen. "The accountant says someone from the IRS wants to see our books." "What IRS?" questioned Michael. "I don't know," whispered William, covering the phone. "He says some strange documents showed up." Brianna felt a chill in her stomach. Could it be a coincidence? William hung up and looked at the others with concern. "Guys, we've got a small issue at the company. Nothing major, but I need to handle it," he said, trying to sound casual. "Let's reschedule this meeting." "Reschedule?" Brianna stood up. "But you said it was urgent, that it was today or never." "Well, some technical issues came up," stammered Richard. What technical issues? Nothing you need to worry about, Stephen replied nervously. Business stuff, you know. She didn't understand, but she sensed something had drastically shifted in the meeting's dynamics. Gentlemen, if there are problems with your company, perhaps you're not the ideal partners for us, said Brianna, surprising everyone, including herself. What do you mean? Asked William, indignant. Your company is the one going under, not ours. But your company is the one being investigated by the IRS, not mine. The silence that followed was deafening. You know what I think, Brianna continued, feeling courage rise from deep within. I think I'll take these documents to my lawyer for a thorough review. No rush. What documents? Asked Michael, sweating. The ones in this folder, and a few others I managed to get. It was a lie, but it worked. The 5 men exchanged uneasy glances again. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers. Now, back to the story. Just then the door opened, and an elegant elderly woman in a navy blue pantsuit walked in. It was Elizabeth Carter. Forgive the intrusion, she said firmly. I'm Elizabeth Carter, business consultant. I need to speak urgently with Dr. Brianna. How did you get in here? Asked William, clearly annoyed. The receptionist has known me for 20 years, Elizabeth replied calmly, and she mentioned a very important meeting was happening. Brianna stared at Elizabeth, confused. The older woman subtly winked and handed her a folder. Dr. Brianna, here are the documents you requested yesterday. About the original deed to the construction company's land. Original deed? Brianna opened the folder without knowing what to expect and nearly fell out of her chair. They were old documents from the time her father bought the land where Johnson Construction now operated. Documents she had never seen before. And there was something there that took her breath away. A certificate proving that a mineral water spring ran beneath the property. What is this? Asked Stephen, trying to see the papers. These are my company's documents, Brianna replied, still processing the information. What documents? Show me, demanded William. I don't have to show you anything. These are private documents. Elizabeth moved closer to Brianna and whispered, Your father left these papers with me before he passed. He asked me to give them to you only if you truly needed them. He said the day would come when they'd be useful. Brianna looked at the certificate again. That land was worth far more than she had imagined. Far more than any of those men had imagined. Gentlemen, she said, standing up with the documents in hand, I think our meeting is over for today. Over? Protested Richard. You haven't signed the contract yet. And I won't. What? The 5 men shouted almost in unison. You heard me. I won't sign. Are you out of your mind? Stephen yelled. This is the only way to save your company. Maybe not. William stood up abruptly, his face red with anger. You'll regret this. We'll make sure the market knows your company is a terrible investment. No one will ever want to do business with you again. Is that a threat? Elizabeth asked calmly. It's a promise, William replied, pointing a finger at Brianna. Interesting, Elizabeth said, pulling out her phone. Because I was recording our conversation. Threats are a crime, Doctor. William. The men turned pale. This is a setup, Michael shouted. It's not a setup. It's self-defense. For months, I've watched these gentlemen try to humiliate Dr. Brianna. Today, I decided to document everything. Brianna looked at Elizabeth with admiration and gratitude. The woman had appeared like a guardian angel. Barbara, Brianna called. Let's go. Wait, Richard shouted. You can't do this. We had a deal. What deal? A deal where you humiliate me, disrespect me, and then plan to destroy my company the moment I sign? Brianna stopped at the door. Oh yes, I heard the recordings. The silence that followed was deadly. What recordings? Stephen asked, his voice trembling. The recordings that prove you never intended to save my company, that you just wanted the land and to toss me aside afterward. Barbara smiled faintly. She had been smarter than anyone realized. That's spying, Michael stammered. That's protection, Brianna replied. And now, if you'll excuse me, I have a company to save. My way. She headed for the door, but William blocked her path. You're not leaving, he said, standing in the way. "Move," Brianna ordered. "You'll sign this contract or what?" Elizabeth stepped beside Brianna. "What exactly are you going to do?" William looked around and realized he was outmatched. Not only was he being recorded, but there was also a respected witness in the room. "You'll regret this," he muttered, stepping aside. Brianna, Elizabeth, and Barbara left the room and headed for the elevator. On the way, Brianna couldn't stop shaking. "Elizabeth, how did you know I needed these documents?" "Barbara called me last night. She told me about today's meeting and the disrespect you've been facing. I decided it was time to use what your father left with me." "My father left these documents with you?" "He did. 3 years ago, when he was hospitalized. He said one day you'd need to know about the spring, that there were people who would try to take advantage of the company's situation." Brianna began to cry. Even after his passing, her father was still protecting her. In the car, Ashley waited anxiously. "Mom, how did it go? Did you sign the contract?" "I didn't sign it," Brianna replied, hugging her daughter. "You didn't, but what about the company?" "We'll find another way, my dear, a way that preserves our dignity." Ashley didn't fully understand, but she saw her mother was more at peace than she had been in months. In the days that followed, Brianna's life changed completely. Elizabeth helped her understand the true value of the construction company's land and develop a plan to tap into the mineral water spring. "You need to realize," Elizabeth explained during a meeting in her office, "this spring could generate far more money than any construction contract. But you'll need trustworthy partners." "Partners like who?" "I know a cooperative of women entrepreneurs who specialize in mineral water. They're serious, ethical people who value genuine partnerships." Brianna was intrigued. After what she'd been through with the men from the Anderson Group, the idea of working only with women sounded refreshing. "Tell me more about them." "The president is Margaret Williams, a 55-year-old chemical engineer who developed an innovative mineral water bottling process. They have businesses in 4 states and are always looking to expand with like-minded people." "And what values do they stand for?" "Respect, transparency, equality. Everything those men failed to offer you." Brianna smiled for the first time in weeks. Elizabeth scheduled a meeting with Margaret for the following week, but before that, other things happened. First, Barbara brought news about the Anderson Group. "Dr. Johnson, the IRS has indeed opened an investigation against them. There seem to be serious tax irregularities. How did you get this information to the IRS? Remember old Frank, the accountant who worked with your father for 20 years? "Of course I do. He now works for an auditing firm. When I told him what was happening, he said he'd already suspected something was off with that group. He gathered some evidence and took it to the authorities." Brianna was moved. Even 3 years after her father's death, the people who had worked with him still looked out for the Johnson family. Second, she received an unexpected call. "Dr. Johnson, this is Mark Sullivan from the New York Times. We'd like to do a story about your company and what happened with the Anderson Group." "How did you find out?" "We have our sources. Would you be willing to give an interview?" Brianna hesitated. Speaking out meant making everything public, but after what she'd been through, perhaps it was important for others to know. "I will." The interview was published 3 days later under the headline, "Black Businesswoman Exposes Racism in Negotiations and Uncovers Fraud Scheme." The response was immediate. Brianna received dozens of supportive calls from other business owners who had faced similar situations, lawyers offering help, journalists seeking more details. But the most important call came from Margaret Williams. "Dr. Johnson, this is Margaret from the American Water Cooperative. I read the article and would love to meet you. Could I come to your company tomorrow?" The meeting took place at Johnson Construction's headquarters in Newark. Margaret arrived with 2 other partners, Jessica Davis, a marketing specialist, and Jennifer Lewis, an environmental engineer. "Dr. Johnson," Margaret said, surveying the facilities, "your company has a prime location, and according to the documents Elizabeth showed me, you have access to one of the purest springs in the region." "That's true, but I don't understand anything about the mineral water market." "That's what partnerships are for," Jessica replied with a smile. We understand the product and you have the raw materials and infrastructure. And how would this partnership work? 50-50, said Jennifer. Equal shares in everything. Profits, decisions, responsibilities. No majority or minority partners. Brianna could hardly believe what she was hearing. After months of being treated as subordinate, these women were talking about equality. What about the construction company employees? They'd keep working, Margaret assured her. In fact, we'll need to hire more people. The mineral water market is growing fast, especially the premium segment. Premium. Specialty waters with unique quality for restaurants, hotels, events. The kind of product that can be worth 5 times more than regular water. Brianna spent the next few days studying proposals and visiting other businesses in the cooperative. Everything she saw impressed her. Modern companies, well-treated employees, quality products, business relationships built on mutual respect. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. But not everything was easy. A week after the article was published, Brianna started facing pressure. First, anonymous calls. "You're going to regret messing with the big players," said a deep male voice. "Who is this?" Brianna asked. The call disconnected. Then longtime clients of the construction company began cancelling contracts. "Dr. Brianna, I can't continue with you," said Robert Wilson, owner of a building supply store. "Nothing personal, but I've been pressured." "What kind of pressure?" "I'd rather not say. I'm really sorry." Brianna realized William and his group were making good on their threat to destroy her reputation in the market. Barbara brought more troubling news. "Doctor, the bank is threatening to call in the debts. They said they won't accept installments anymore. But we were up to date on the agreement. They said their internal policies changed." Brianna knew this wasn't a coincidence. Someone was pressuring the bank. That's when Elizabeth had an idea. "Brianna, you need to speed things up with the cooperative. If you sign the deal quickly, you'll get the funds to pay off the debts." "But I'm still reviewing the technical details." "Time is working against you. The longer you wait, the more William can do to hurt you." Elizabeth was right. Brianna scheduled an urgent meeting with Margaret. "Margaret, I need a final answer. Are you in for the partnership?" "We're in, but we need you to sign today. Our lawyer has already prepared all the paperwork." "Today?" "Yes, because we've heard the Anderson Group is trying to buy your debts. If they succeed, they can force bankruptcy." Brianna felt the world spin. It was a race against time. "Then let's sign." The contracts were signed right at the construction company, with all employees present. When Brianna announced the new partnership, there were cheers and tears of relief. "Everyone," she said, emotional, "our company will keep going, and it will grow." Old Henry, the longest-serving employee at 68, approached her. "Dr. Brianna, your father would be proud. You did the right thing." But the real proof she'd made the right choice came 2 weeks later. Barbara walked into the office with a newspaper in hand and a wide smile. "Doctor, look at this headline." It read, "Anderson Group investigated for tax evasion and money laundering." "Were they arrested?" Brianna asked. "Anna, not arrested, but they're under investigation. And all the companies in the group were suspended from participating in public bids." Brianna felt a mix of relief and satisfaction. It wasn't revenge, it was justice. In the following months, the transformation of Johnson Construction was astonishing. The production of mineral water, Johnson Springs, began with modern equipment installed on the same land where only the construction company had once operated. Ashley, who had initially been worried about the changes, was now proud of her mother. "Mom, your water is being sold in the best restaurants in New York City." "And that's not all," Brianna said, showing a report. "We've managed to employ 50 more people, and everyone earns fair wages." The partnership with the cooperative proved far more advantageous than any contract Richard could have offered. Beyond profits, there was respect, transparency in decisions, and the feeling that she was building something lasting. Elizabeth, who had become an informal advisor, often visited the company. "Brianna, you made the hardest decision but also the right one. Your father would truly be proud." Sometimes I wonder if he knew this would happen. I think he was certain. That's why he left those documents with me. He knew you'd make the right choice when the time came. 6 months after the first meeting at the consortium, Brianna was in her renovated office when Barbara announced an unexpected visitor. "Ma'am, there's someone at reception asking to speak with you." "Who is it?" "Dr. William Anderson." Brianna tensed. What did that man want here? "Send him in." William entered the office with a defeated air. He was visibly thinner, with deep bags under his eyes and wrinkled clothes. "Brianna, I need to talk to you." "Go ahead. I came to apologize and to propose a deal." "Apologize?" Brianna crossed her arms. "Interesting. I know I was inappropriate in that meeting, and I know you didn't deserve to be treated that way. Go on." "The truth is, my company is struggling. Because of the investigations, we've lost several contracts, and I heard your mineral water is doing very well." Brianna said nothing, just waited. "We'd like to be the exclusive distributors of Johnson Springs in the southern zone of New York City." The proposal was ironic. The same man who had tried to humiliate her was now there asking to sell her product. "Why should I agree?" "Because we're good at what we do, and because it would be a good deal for both sides." "William, you said people like me don't know how to handle big numbers. Remember?" William lowered his head, ashamed. "I was wrong. You humiliated me, disrespected me, tried to trick me with a fraudulent contract." "I know, and I regret it." Brianna stood and walked to the window, watching the employees working in the company yard. There was joy in that environment, something that hadn't existed for years. "So you know, William, 6 months ago I would have accepted any offer from you, any crumb you threw my way. And now? Now I understand my worth, and my company's worth." She turned to face him. "I won't do business with you, not because I want revenge, but because I don't trust you. Trust is built with respect, and respect is something you never showed me." William sighed deeply. "I understand. Besides, we already have distributors who believed in us from the start. Can I at least buy the product to resell?" Brianna almost smiled at the complete reversal of the situation. "You can. Under the same conditions we offer any client. No special treatment." "Thank you. And, William, the next time you sit at a negotiation table with a black woman, remember this conversation. Remember that competence has no color." After William left, Brianna was alone in her office, reflecting on everything that had happened. Her phone rang. It was a message from Ashley. "Mom, I saw at school that our water is being sold even overseas, so proud." Yes, Johnson Springs had secured markets even in Canada and the United Kingdom. What had begun as a desperate discovery to save the company had become an international success. Barbara entered the office. "Doctor, an invitation arrived." "What invitation?" "For you to give a talk at the Federation of Industries. The theme is business resilience." Brianna smiled. A year ago, she could barely get a meeting with investors. Now she was being invited to teach other entrepreneurs. "I'll accept it." That evening at home, she had dinner with Ashley and told her about William's visit. "Mom, do you really think he's changed?" "I don't know, sweetheart, but I have changed, and that's the difference." "What do you mean?" "I learned that my dignity isn't for sale, not at any price." Ashley hugged her mother proudly. "Dad would be proud of you." "You mean your grandfather?" "No, Mom. Dad too. Mr. Robert always said you were strong, but I don't think even he imagined how much." That night, alone in her room, Brianna looked at the photo of her father on the nightstand. It was an old picture of him, still young, at the inauguration of Johnson Construction's first project. "Dad, we did it. The company is saved, and so is our dignity." A year after that fateful meeting on the 40th floor, Brianna was once again in a luxurious conference room. But this time, she was the one leading the meeting. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said to a group of potential international investors, "it's a pleasure to present Johnson Springs results for the last fiscal year." The numbers were impressive. Revenue had grown by 400%, the number of employees had doubled, and the company had become a benchmark for environmental sustainability. Dr. Brianna asked a Canadian investor, "What's the secret to your success?" "Respect," she answered without hesitation. "We respect our employees, our partners, our customers, and the environment, and we demand the same respect in return." "And what about the challenges?" "The biggest challenge was learning to value our own work. For a long time, we accepted being treated as inferior. When we decided to change that, everything changed." After the meeting, as she walked through the same building where she had been humiliated a year earlier, Brianna ran into the receptionist who had worked there at the time. "Dr. Brianna, so good to see you. I heard your company is doing really well." "It is. And you, how are you?" "I changed jobs. Now I work at a company where I'm treated with more respect." "I'm happy for you." "Doctor, can I say something? That day when you walked out of here, I really hoped everything would work out for you. You didn't deserve to be treated like that." "Thank you. That means a lot to me." In the elevator, descending 40 floors, Brianna thought about how her life had completely changed, not just financially, but emotionally and spiritually. She had learned that the price of success should never be her own dignity, that true partnerships are built on mutual respect, and that sometimes tearing up a contract can lead to a much better future. When she reached the lobby, she found Elizabeth waiting for her. "How was the meeting?" "Excellent. We closed an export deal for Australia. Your father would be proud." "I know. And I'm proud too, of making the right decision that day." "What was the right decision?" "Choosing my dignity over money. It was the best decision of my life." As they walked down the street, the two women talked about the future. There were plans to expand to other states, create a line of sustainable products, and even start a foundation to support Black women entrepreneurs. "Brianna, you've become an example for so many women." "I hope so. I hope other women understand they should never accept disrespect, no matter how badly they need the money." "And do you have any regrets?" Brianna paused and thought for a moment. "None. Zero. Tearing up that contract was the most liberating act of my life." "Even knowing you could have lost everything?" "Elizabeth, I would have lost everything either way. They wanted to destroy the company. The difference is whether I lost it with dignity or without. I chose dignity." When they reached the parking lot, Brianna saw Ashley waiting in the car. The girl was reading a book on entrepreneurship. "Want to follow in your mother's footsteps?" Elizabeth asked. "I want to study business administration. But with one difference, I'll only work with companies that respect people." "Great choice," Brianna said, hugging her daughter. On the way home, they passed the old headquarters of the Anderson Group. The building had a "for lease" sign out front. "Mom, do you feel sorry for them?" "I feel sorry for anyone who misses opportunities because of prejudice. They could have had a loyal, competent partner. Instead, they chose disrespect and lost everything." "Do you think they learned their lesson?" "I don't know, but I learned mine." "What's that?" "That I'll never accept less than I deserve again. And that teaching you that is more important than any million-dollar contract." 3 months later, Brianna stood on stage at the New York City Convention Center, speaking to an audience of 1,000 women entrepreneurs. "Some of you may be going through tough times," she said into the microphone. "You might be tempted to accept offers that don't value you properly. Let me tell you a story." She shared her entire journey, from the humiliation in the boardroom to her company's current success. The audience listened in absolute silence. "When I tore up that contract," she concluded, "I didn't know if it would work out. But I knew I couldn't accept being disrespected, and neither should you." The ovation lasted 5 minutes. Many women cried. Others lined up to greet her after the talk. "Dr. Brianna," said one young entrepreneur, "thank you for giving me the courage to leave an abusive partnership." "Dr. Brianna," said another, "your story made me realize I can demand more from my business partners." An elderly woman with white hair approached last. "Dear, I'm 70 years old and have worked since I was 15. I've never heard a story that moved me so much. You're an example to all of us." That night at home, Brianna was organizing the gifts and cards she'd received when Barbara arrived with special news. "Doctor, An international invitation came for you. From where? The United Nations. They want you to speak at a conference on women's entrepreneurship in New York. Brianna held the invitation with trembling hands. 2 years ago, she could barely get a meeting with local business owners. Now she was being asked to represent America at an international conference. I'll accept. And there's more, Barbara said with a mysterious smile. What? Business Leader magazine wants to feature you in an article on inspiring American businesswomen. You're on their top 10 list for the country. Brianna sat down, overwhelmed. It was hard to believe how much had changed in so little time. Barbara, do you think I deserve all this? Doctor, you've always deserved it. The difference is now the world sees it. That night before bed, Brianna wrote in her journal, 2 years ago, I thought success meant accepting any offer that came my way. Today, I understand success means being respected for who you are and what you do. Tearing up that contract was like tearing away a past of submission and starting a new life of dignity. 6 months later, Brianna was in New York City at the UN building, representing America at a conference on women's rights in the corporate world. My name is Brianna Johnson, she said into the microphone, addressing an audience of delegates from 50 countries. I am a Black American businesswoman, and I'm here to share how I learned never to accept less than I deserve. Her story made international headlines. Newspapers from various countries published articles about the American businesswoman who chose dignity over money. Upon returning to America, she was greeted at the airport by hundreds of people, mostly women, who wanted to congratulate her. Dr. Brianna, you're our pride, shouted one woman in the crowd. Thank you for representing us so well, said another. Ashley, who was there to welcome her, hugged her mother with tears in her eyes. Mom, you've become a symbol. A symbol of what? That it's possible to succeed by staying true to yourself. In the car on the way home, they talked about future plans. Mom, are you going to write a book? Several publishers have already reached out. I'm thinking about it. You should. Your story could help so many people. Maybe. But what's most important is that our company continues to grow ethically and sustainably. And is it growing? A lot. Next month, we're opening a new factory in Michigan. We'll create 300 direct jobs. That's wonderful! And there's more. We secured a contract to supply water to public hospitals. It's a social project that makes me very happy. A year after the UN conference, Brianna was back in a meeting room. But this time, it was to sign a contract with the federal government to supply mineral water to public schools across the country. Dr. Brianna, said the Secretary of Education, it's an honor to have an American company providing quality products for our children. The honor is ours, Mr. Secretary. After signing the contract, she remembered that day 3 years ago when she nearly signed a deal that would have destroyed her company and her dignity. What are you thinking about? Asked Margaret, her partner from the cooperative. I'm thinking about how life can change when we make brave decisions. Do you have any regrets about that day? None. It was the best mistake I ever made. How so a mistake? A mistake in the eyes of those men. To them, I was crazy for tearing up the contract, but for me, it was the best decision of my life. That evening, Brianna was at home preparing dinner when Ashley returned from college. Mom, today we did a project on entrepreneurship in class. I used you as an example. And what did you say? That my mother taught me success isn't just about making money. It's about making money while keeping your dignity. What did your professor say? That he'd love to meet you in person. Maybe one day. Mom, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you still think about those men who humiliated you? Brianna stopped stirring the sauce and thought for a moment. Sometimes, but not with anger. With gratitude. Gratitude? Yes, because they showed me who I never wanted to become, and they gave me the chance to discover my real strength. Have you forgiven them? I have. Not for them, but for myself. Holding on to bitterness would only hurt me. What if they came back today asking for another chance? I'd say no. Not out of revenge, but because I've learned trust is built on consistency, and they never showed consistency in respect. 2 weeks later, Brianna received a call that surprised her. "Dr. Brianna, this is Richard Thompson. Remember me?" How could she forget? Richard was the secretary of the consortium that had once suggested she take photos serving coffee. "I do. What do you want?" "I'd like to apologize in person." "Can I visit you?" Brianna hesitated. Part of her didn't want to relive those moments, but another part felt curious. "You can come." Richard arrived at the company the next day. He was visibly nervous and ashamed. "Dr. Brianna, I came to sincerely apologize for my behavior that day." "Why are you apologizing now?" "Because my daughter read about you online. She's 12 and asked if I knew you. When I said yes, she asked how our meeting went." Richard paused, emotional. "I couldn't tell her the truth. I was ashamed to admit how I treated you." "And what did you say?" "I lied. I said it was a normal meeting, but afterward I couldn't sleep, thinking about how I'd raise a daughter who respects people if I don't respect them myself." Brianna was moved by his sincerity. "Richard, I accept your apology." "Thank you, and can I ask you for a favor?" "What is it?" "My daughter is doing a school project on inspiring women. She chose you. Would you agree to give her an interview?" Brianna smiled. Life had a funny way of turning things around. "I accept." The interview happened over video call. The girl, named Emma, asked smart questions and showed surprising maturity. "Dr. Brianna, what would you say to a girl who wants to be a businesswoman?" "I'd tell her never to accept disrespect, to study hard, work honestly, and always remember her worth doesn't depend on others' opinions. And if someone says she can't achieve something because of her skin color, I'd tell her to prove them wrong, not with anger but with competence." After the interview, Richard sent a message. "Thank you for being so kind to my daughter. You truly are a special person." Brianna replied, "Thank you for giving me the chance to speak with her. Caring for our children is all our responsibility." A few months later, Brianna was organizing her documents when she found a copy of the contract she'd torn up 3 years earlier. Rereading it, she noticed details she'd missed back then, clauses even more abusive than she remembered. "My God," she murmured, "how did I almost sign this?" Barbara, who was helping with the organizing, looked over her shoulder. "Doctor, you were desperate. Anyone could have made that mistake." "But I didn't, and you know why?" "Why?" "Because in the hardest moment, I chose to listen to my heart instead of my need. And it worked. It worked better than that. It made me a better person." Brianna stored the contract in a special folder, not as a bad memory, but as a symbol of a life she'd left behind. That evening, she was at home when Elizabeth called. "Brianna, I have news for you." "What news?" "You've been invited to give a talk at Harvard University about women's leadership and ethical decision-making." Brianna nearly dropped the phone. "Harvard? The American university?" "Exactly. They want you to share your story with MBA students." I don't know what to say." "Say yes. The world needs to hear your story." Harvard, the most prestigious university in the world, wanted to hear the story of a black businesswoman from Newark who'd torn up $1 billion contract to defend her dignity. "Elizabeth, 3 years ago I could barely get respect in a meeting in New York City. How is it possible Harvard wants me now?" "Because your story transcends borders. Dignity is a universal value." Brianna accepted the invitation, and 2 months later she stood on Harvard's campus looking at students from dozens of countries. "My name is Brianna Johnson," she said in the packed auditorium. "I came from America to share how I learned that some decisions are worth more than money." The talk was an absolute success. Students lined up for photos and autographs. Many shared their own experiences with discrimination and lack of respect in academic and professional environments. "Professor Johnson," said a Chinese student, "your story gave me the courage to report discrimination I faced right here at Harvard." "Dr. Johnson," said a Nigerian student, "I'll return to my country knowing I can be a businesswoman without compromising my values." On the flight back to America, Brianna reflected on everything that had happened. In 3 years, she had gone from near bankruptcy and humiliation to becoming an international reference in ethical leadership. But what moved her most wasn't the recognition or financial success. It was knowing her story was inspiring other women not to accept less than they deserved. When she arrived in America, Ashley was at the airport with a surprise. "Mom, I have something to show you." "What is it?" "A letter that came for you." It was a handwritten letter from a 10-year-old girl in a small town in Louisiana. "Mrs. Johnson, my teacher shared your story in class. I want to be a businesswoman like you when I grow up, and I promise I'll never let anyone disrespect me. Thank you for teaching me I can be strong. With love, Lily Grace." Brianna began to cry. "This letter is worth more than any billion-dollar contract," she told Ashley. "Why? Because it means our fight wasn't in vain, that other girls will grow up knowing they deserve respect." End of story. Now tell me, what did you think of this story of resilience and dignity? Have you encountered a similar situation? If this story moved you, leave a comment sharing which part touched you most. Your support is so important in helping us continue to bring inspiring stories like this one.